Megan Collins stood frozen in her Manhattan penthouse, the ultrasound picture still clutched in her trembling hand. The excitement of sharing the news of their baby girl with her husband Blake had evaporated into thin air, replaced by a numbing shock that spread through her body like ice water. "I don't understand," she whispered, her voice barely audible against the backdrop of New York City traffic 20 floors below. "What do you mean you're leaving?" Blake adjusted his Rolex, not meeting her eyes. "I've been offered a position in London. It's what I've always wanted. We can move to London together," Megan said desperately, her hand instinctively moving to her 5-month pregnant belly. "The baby and I—" "Rebecca is coming with me," Blake interrupted, finally looking at her with cold eyes. "My assistant. We've been together for a while now." The words hit Megan like physical blows. Rebecca, the slim, efficient blonde who had organized their anniversary dinner just last month, who had sent Megan flowers from Blake when he was working late. How long? Megan managed 8 months. 8 months. Before the pregnancy. Before they had decided to try for a baby. Before Megan had left her promising career as an interior designer to prepare for motherhood. "The apartment is yours," Blake continued in a businesslike tone. "The divorce papers are on the counter. My lawyer says it's a generous settlement." Megan didn't recognize the man standing before her. 6 years of marriage, and she was being discarded like an outdated investment, her pregnancy an inconvenient detail in his new life plan. "What about our daughter?" she asked, her voice finding strength in maternal instinct. Blake's expression flickered with something guilt. "Perhaps, but it vanished quickly. I'll provide financially, of course. But Rebecca and we're starting fresh. No complications. No complications." Their child was a complication. Blake picked up his pre-packed suitcase. How long had he been planning this? And walked toward the door. "I'll be in touch through my lawyer." After the door closed, Megan sank to the marble floor, the ultrasound picture still in her hand. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the Manhattan skyline glittered indifferently. Inside, her perfectly curated life lay shattered around her like broken glass. Her phone buzzed. A message from her doctor, congratulating her on the healthy ultrasound. Another from her mother asking how Blake had taken the news. The ordinary world continued while hers had stopped spinning. Megan didn't know how long she sat there, tears silently streaming down her face, before her phone rang again. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, but some instinct made her answer. "Megan Collins?" A deep, vaguely familiar voice asked. "Yes," she replied, her voice raw. "This is Ethan Blackwood. We met at the Riverside Foundation Gala last year. Hi. I hope I'm not intruding, but I heard about your situation. I have a proposition for you." The name triggered a distant memory, a tall, imposing figure with intense eyes and a rare, transformative smile. Ethan Blackwood, tech mogul, philanthropist, and one of the wealthiest men in America. They had spoken briefly at the charity gala, an unexpectedly genuine conversation amidst the superficial networking. "How did you hear?" Megan asked, suddenly self-conscious of her tear-stained face, though he couldn't see her. "Blake and I move in the same circles," Ethan replied, his voice carefully neutral. "He's been indiscreet about his plans." A fresh wave of humiliation washed over Megan. Was she the last to know? Had everyone been whispering behind her back? "I don't need pity," she said firmly, pregnancy hormones fueling a flash of anger. "Good, because I'm not offering any," Ethan responded, a hint of amusement in his voice. "I'm offering an opportunity. My development company is launching a luxury eco-resort in Santorini. We need an interior designer with vision, someone who can create spaces that honor the natural environment while providing uncompromising luxury." Megan blinked in confusion. "I haven't worked in over a year. I've followed your work since before you stepped back." The lakeside hotel renovation was brilliant, respectful of history, yet boldly modern. Exactly what this project needs. Despite everything, a small spark of professional pride flickered within her. The lakeside had been her favorite project, the one where she truly found her voice as a designer. Mr. Blackwood, Ethan. Please, Ethan, I'm 5 months pregnant. I'm aware, he said simply. The resort doesn't open for another year. You'd have time with your daughter before the final installation phase. My staff in Greece includes several working parents. We have excellent on-site childcare facilities. Megan's mind raced. Was he serious? A chance to restart her career, to escape New York and the pitying glances she would inevitably face? Why me? She asked, suspicious of such perfect timing. There was a pause before Ethan answered. Because you're talented, and because I believe people deserve second chances when life deals them an unfair hand. Something in his tone suggested personal experience with life's unfairness. I need time to think. Megan said finally, of course. But Megan ... Sometimes the universe has a way of closing one door and opening another. My jet leaves for Santorini tomorrow afternoon. If you're interested, there will be a seat for you. After they hung up, Megan slowly stood, walking to the window that framed the city she had once loved. Behind her lay divorce papers and broken promises. Ahead of her was uncertainty, but also, perhaps, possibility. Morning light filtered through the blinds as Megan methodically packed a suitcase. Each item represented a choice practical maternity clothes over the designer outfits Blake had always preferred. Comfortable shoes instead of stilettos. Her portfolio of design work she hadn't looked at in months. Her phone had been buzzing incessantly. Her mother, her friends, even Blake's mother expressing confusion and concern. She answered none of them. What could she say? That her perfect life had been an elaborate facade? That she was considering flying halfway around the world with a near stranger while 5 months pregnant? When her sister Kate called for the 4th time, Megan finally answered. Are you okay? Kate demanded, worry evident in her voice. Mom's freaking out. Blake left me, Megan said flatly. For his assistant, Kate's string of expletives was oddly comforting. That absolute, I'm coming over right now. No, Megan said, surprising herself with her certainty. I'm leaving New York. What? Where are you going? Please don't tell me you're running back to Ohio. Megan glanced at her passport on the nightstand. Santorini? Greece? Megan, you're pregnant. I'm pregnant, not incapacitated, she replied, a flash of her old spirit returning. She explained Ethan's offer as Kate listened in stunned silence. This sounds crazy, Kate finally said. You barely know this guy. I know, Megan admitted. But staying here feels crazier. Watching Blake start his new life with Rebecca while I'm relegated to the sad, abandoned, pregnant wife? I can't do it, Kate. There was a long pause. Is this about the job or about running away? The question hit uncomfortably close to home. Maybe both, Megan admitted. But I need to do something for myself right now. Something that isn't defined by Blake or his betrayal. What about the divorce? The settlement? The lawyers can handle it. Blake can have whatever he wants, except the right to disrupt my daughter's life whenever it's convenient for him. After ending the call with promises to stay in touch, Megan finished packing and called a car service. As she waited, she wandered through the penthouse one last time. Every corner held memories. The dining room where they'd hosted ambitious dinner parties. The living room where they'd planned their future. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. The offer stands. No pressure either way. Standing in the nursery she had just begun to decorate, Megan made her decision. This room, like her marriage, was an unfinished promise. She could stay and try to salvage something from the wreckage, or she could start fresh. 3 hours later, her suitcase was being loaded onto Ethan Blackwood's private jet. A sleek Gulfstream with understated luxury that spoke of wealth confident enough not to broadcast itself. Ethan was waiting. At the foot of the stairs, tall and imposing in casual linen, his eyes showing neither victory nor surprise at her arrival. "Just quiet understanding? Ready?" he asked simply. Megan took a deep breath and nodded. "Ready?" Santorini unfolded beneath them like a dream, stark white buildings cascading down, volcanic cliffs to a sea, so blue it seemed unreal. As the helicopter from Athens approached the private helipad at Ethan's villa, Megan felt a strange sense of déjà vu, as though she had always been meant to see this place. "It's breathtaking," she said, her voice barely audible over the rotors. Ethan nodded, his usually serious face softened by what might have been pride. "Wait until you see it at sunset." The villa exceeded anything Megan could have imagined. A masterful blend of traditional, Cycladic architecture and modern luxury, all designed to frame the spectacular caldera views. Curved white walls, infinity pools that seemed to merge with the sea, and discreet terraces carved into the cliffside. "This will be your home while you're here," Ethan explained, leading her to a separate guest house with its own private terrace. "The resort site is about 15 minutes from here. There's no rush to start. Work takes some time to settle in." "Thank you," Megan said, overwhelmed by his consideration. For all of this, something flashed in his eyes, a momentary vulnerability quickly masked. Sometimes we all need a chance to rewrite our stories. Over the following weeks, a routine emerged. Mornings spent reviewing plans for the resort, afternoons exploring the island or resting when pregnancy fatigue hit, evenings often spent on Ethan's main terrace, discussing the project over simple but exquisite meals prepared by his chef. Megan learned that Ethan had built his technology empire from nothing, selling his first company at 23 and investing the proceeds in what would become a revolutionary clean energy storage solution. The resort was his first venture into hospitality, a passion project meant to showcase how luxury and sustainability could coexist. What he didn't volunteer, but Megan eventually pieced together, was that he had experienced his own betrayal. His former fiancée had left him for his business partner, taking proprietary designs with her. The scandal had been headline news 3 years earlier, though Megan, absorbed in her own life with Blake, had paid little attention at the time. "Is that why you reached out to me?" she asked one evening as they watched the famous Santorini sunset paint the sky in impossible colors. "Because you understand what it's like." Ethan considered her question, swirling the local wine he was drinking, while Megan sipped pomegranate juice. "Partly," he admitted, "but mostly because, when we met at that gala, you were the only person who asked me about my mother's foundation rather than my net worth." Remembered that conversation, his animated description of the educational programs the foundation funded, named after his mother who had raised him alone. "You seemed real," he continued. "It's rare in our circles." As the sunset faded to dusk, Megan felt something shifting between them, something tentative and fragile, but undeniably present. The resort was taking shape, both physically and in Megan's comprehensive design plans. Her creativity, dormant during her marriage to Blake, had reawakened with surprising force. Each day brought new ideas, new solutions to the challenges of creating luxury that honored rather than conquered. Its natural setting. At 7 months pregnant, Megan had found an unexpected rhythm to her new life. Her body was changing dramatically, but instead of the self-consciousness she had felt in New York, here she experienced a kind of elemental pride. The local women treated her pregnancy as something to be celebrated rather than accommodated, bringing her special herbal teas and sharing wisdom passed through generations. Ethan, too, had changed from the reserved businessman she'd first met. Around her, he was more relaxed, more willing to share glimpses of the man behind the empire. He never intruded on her space or made her feel indebted, but he was consistently present, ensuring she had everything she needed. accompanying her to doctor's appointments in Athens, listening intently to her design concepts. One evening, as they walked along a less touristed black sand beach, Megan received an email from her lawyer. The divorce was final. Blake had accepted all her terms, eager to expedite the process so he could marry Rebecca. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked, noticing her expression as she read the message. "Yes," Megan realized with surprise. "I actually am." She explained about the divorce, watching the waves lap at the volcanic shore. "6 months ago, this would have devastated me. Now it feels like closure on a previous chapter." They walked in comfortable silence until Megan suddenly gasped, placing a hand on her rounded belly. "What is it?" Ethan asked, instantly concerned. "She's kicking really strongly," Megan laughed. Without thinking, she took his hand and placed it where her daughter was making her presence known. The moment his hand touched her belly, something electric passed between them. Ethan's eyes widened as he felt the baby kick, his expression transforming with wonder. "That's incredible," he whispered. They stood frozen in that tableau, his hand on her belly. Their eyes locked, the Aegean Sea stretching endlessly behind them. Then, with gentle deliberation, Ethan leaned forward and kissed her. It was a questioning kiss, careful and restrained, giving her every opportunity to pull away. But Megan found herself responding, a warmth blooming inside her that had nothing to do with the Mediterranean sun. When they broke apart, neither spoke immediately. The moment felt too significant for casual words. "I didn't plan this," Ethan finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "When I offered you the job, this wasn't my intention." "I know," Megan replied, because somehow she did know. Whatever was developing between them had caught them both by surprise. As they walked back toward the villa, hand in hand, Megan realized that Santorini had given her more than a professional second chance. It had awakened her to the possibility that her heart, too, might be capable of beginning again. The baby arrived on a perfect Santorini morning, the sun rising over the caldera as Megan brought her daughter into the world. Sophia Grace Collins entered life with a powerful cry that made the midwife laugh approvingly. "Strong lungs," the experienced Greek woman commented as she placed the newborn on Megan's chest. Tears streamed down Megan's face as she cradled her daughter, overwhelmed by a love so fierce it took her breath away. Through the haze of exhaustion and joy, she was aware of Ethan outside in the private clinic's waiting area, the man who had chartered a medical helicopter to stand by, just in case, who had vetted every doctor and midwife on the island, who had held her hand through every contraction until the final stages of labor. Not the father of her child, but something new and undefined a possibility. Blake had sent a perfunctory, congratulatory email when informed of Sophia's birth, along with notification that his lawyers had established the promised trust fund. No mention of visiting or meeting his daughter. His new life with Rebecca apparently left no room for complications. Megan found she could only summon pity for him, for all he would miss in this remarkable little person. In the weeks that followed, Megan and Sophia settled into a new rhythm. The guest house had been transformed with a nursery that managed to be both whimsical and elegant, reflecting Megan's renewed design sensibilities. The resort project continued, with Megan working when Sophia slept, her creative vision undimmed by motherhood, perhaps even enhanced by it. Ethan moved carefully around their evolving relationship, respectful of her need to focus on Sophia, yet making his feelings increasingly clear through actions rather than declarations. 3 months after Sophia's birth, as Megan sat on her private terrace watching the sunset with her daughter sleeping peacefully in her arms, Ethan joined her with 2 glasses of champagne. "The eco-certification came through," he explained, handing her a glass. "The resort is officially recognized as one of the most sustainable luxury properties in the Mediterranean." "That's wonderful," Megan smiled, genuinely proud of what they had accomplished together. "Your vision made real our vision," he corrected gently. "It wouldn't be what it is without you." As the sky turned from gold to deep purple, Ethan took a deep breath. "I've been thinking about what happens next." Megan's heart skipped. The resort was nearly complete, her contract technically ending. "Oh? I'd like you to stay," he said simply. "Not just as our designer, as whatever we're becoming to each other. I love you, Megan. I love Sophia too, though I would never presume to replace her father. But if you'll let me, I'd like to be part of your lives permanently." The directness of his declaration, free from games or manipulation, brought tears to Megan's eyes. This was what real love looked like, not Blake's calculated affection, but something honest and courageous. "We'd like that too," she whispered, looking down at her sleeping daughter. "Very much." As Ethan leaned in to seal their new beginning with a kiss, Megan reflected on the strange, winding path that had led her here. A betrayal that had felt like the end of everything had, instead, opened the door to a life more authentic and fulfilling than she could have imagined. Sometimes, she realized, what seems like the worst moment of your life is actually the universe redirecting you toward your true destiny.